It's finally the day. The brand new Animal Crossing game is out. I've been waiting for this day for years. Oh my god, I can't wait to design my own island. The villagers look different and I can even craft stuff. Let's go. Alright, it's officially been a couple weeks since I started playing and my island is coming together. I have all my villagers and I have a 3-star island. Well, my island is done. So what now? Maybe I could talk to my villagers. Oh wait, they all say the same 2 sentences over and over. I could visit my friends' islands. Oh wait, all I can do is walk around their island. I could also just completely turn off the game and not come back to it for a couple years and nothing would change. At all. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're an Animal Crossing fanatic and wonder why Animal Crossing New Horizons was enjoyable for only about a year or so, then you're just like me. And if you're ready to hear a grown adult talk down on a game that's basically made for kids, then you're in the right place. Today we're going to be taking a look at the unfortunate downfall of Animal Crossing and how New Horizons kind of contributed to that downfall. Let's take it all the way back to the first Animal Crossing, which was released in Japan in 2001 and eventually was released internationally in 2002 on the GameCube. The game ended up being pretty successful and people praised the game for its simplistic gameplay. You perform tasks, collect fish and bugs, and run your little town. There was a lack of more casual games during this time, so that's what really made this game successful. One thing that will always stick out to me in this game is definitely the dialogue with the villagers. They would say some pretty crazy stuff like you should lose weight or even call you a quote-unquote freak mental case. Following the success of the first game, Nintendo released Animal Crossing Wild World on the Nintendo DS in 2005. Wild World was also received pretty well, and what stood out the most to people with the release of this game was the ability to play online with friends. It was honestly pretty similar to the original Animal Crossing in the fact that you were still doing the same kind of gameplay, but players were still invested. People were ready for what was to come in the next game. And 3 years later, Animal Crossing City Folk was released on the Wii, and this one was a little different. It was still the same concept of the first 2 games, where you live in your little town and talk to villagers and such, but the main feature of this game that piqued everyone's interest was the fact that there was an entire city district that you could travel to. You could buy high-end clothes from Gracie Grace, go to the theater and see Dr. Shrunk to unlock reactions, get your hair done by Harriet as Shampoodle, and even get your Mii character's head to replace your villager's head, which is kind of scary. You could also bid on furniture and even have Kix polish your shoes. An even cooler feature they added was that if you played Wild World, you could copy your character and transfer your catalog furniture over to City Folk. While I personally think this game is fun, Animal Crossing City Folk received mixed reviews upon its release. While some players enjoyed the new features they added, a lot of them believed that this game was too similar to its predecessors, but the game still did well regardless. Then in 2012, I think the world stopped for a second because Animal Crossing New Leaf, which is the game I started on, was released on the Nintendo 3DS. This game was immediately a hit due to its charming new visuals and gameplay style. In this installment specifically, you as the main character now are the mayor of your own town and still includes the same pleasing aspects as all the other games before. Customization was a big new addition to the game, allowing players to really customize their own character. It also added a brand new catalog of critters called sea creatures, which could be obtained by putting on a wetsuit and swimming in the ocean. You also have the ability to visit Captain's Island, which is an island that stays somewhere all year long and allows you to play various mini games with yourself or with friends. All the main shops were now on the main street, which is across the train tracks near town. As you play through the game, you upgrade and unlock shops that all have different items you can buy. As the mayor of your town, you're able to get ordinances and even do public works projects to spruce up your town, including Brewster's Cafe and even the police station. You can also unlock the Dream Suite, which allows the player to connect via the internet to visit other towns without having to ask a player to open their town for you. New Leaf was a hit and received a generally positive response and is one of the top-selling games on the Nintendo 3DS system. Nintendo followed the success by making a new spin-off game called Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer in 2015, where players could design houses for villagers and introduced a lot of creative freedom for the player. Then there was the release of Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival on the Wii U that same year, but we don't talk about that game. But Nintendo wasn't quite done with New Leaf, and in 2016 they introduced the Welcome Amiibo update, adding support for scanning in villagers through amiibos, and even introduced new villagers that were references to other popular Nintendo games like Zelda and Splatoon. At this point, Animal Crossing was only going up, and people were excited to see what was next for this already amazing franchise. Then finally, after teasing a new possible game in 2019, Animal Crossing New Horizons was released in 2020. New Horizons was immediately a smashing success due to its completely new graphics and gameplay. While still holding on to the life simulation playstyle, the player is brought to a deserted island that is completely yours. The game offers an immense amount of creative freedom, allowing you to finally place furniture outside on your island, which was not a feature in any of the previous games. You can even terraform your island and create cliffs and rivers. The initial goal is to develop your island from nothing to something by decorating, terraforming, unlocking new shops, and upgrades. The game itself is stunning, with amazing graphics and updated looks to villagers and other characters. Upon its release, New Horizons received tons of love, bringing old and new players to the game. It was critically acclaimed by people all over the world and remains the second best-selling game on the Nintendo Switch. You could say this game's success partially comes from the COVID-19 pandemic, which caused the entire world to remain at home, and New Horizons offered a way to escape the stress of that time. The game was updated almost every month that year, adding new holiday events and items, and in 2021, Nintendo announced a huge final update for the game, which added old and new characters to the game, tons of new furniture, and even a new DLC called Happy Home Paradise, which was similar to Happy Home Designer. With so many good reviews on New Horizons and how it arguably is the best game in the series, how did it contribute to the unfortunate downfall of Animal Crossing as a whole? Well, let's talk about it. Now, Animal Crossing is known to be a more chill game, with no real way to actually beat the game. Each game is designed to start you off with some tasks before you can really get going, and in your first week of Animal Crossing New Horizons, you're pretty busy. Your goal in the beginning is to do some stuff for Tom Nook, unlock crafting, get villagers, get your shops, and upgrade resident services. And all this can be done in practically a week's tops, without time traveling. I remember at this point when I started New Horizons, I was excited to play each day because there were actual tasks to do. Once you get to the point of having a 3-star island, you can finally unlock the ability to terraform and place paths, which can really help you get to the quote-unquote end goal in the game, which is to have a 5-star island. This all can basically be done in about a month of playing, so once you're content with your island, you're practically done with the game. This is when players and myself started to notice that there was something a little off at this point. Now, I'm speaking in terms of when the game first came out in 2020 before the big 2.0 update in 2021 because I'm basing this off my experience. So here's my main issues with the game: the lack of content overall, the game mechanics, and how the life simulation aspect kind of misses in this game. So for starters, the main thing people noticed was the lack of main characters and buildings that had been in every game up until this installment. The only NPCs and places that seemed to have returned at this point were Tom Nook and Isabelle at Resident Services, Timmy and Tommy at Nook's Cranny, Mabel and Sable at Able Sisters, Blathers at the museum, and new characters Orville and Wilbur at the airport who are always on your island. That's only 5 major buildings, plus the campsite if you want to include that. What confused me and many others was that first of all, Timmy and Tommy's shop only got 2 major upgrades when in New Leaf it upgraded 5 times and offered a much wider selection of furniture and other items, including a whole other shop called Gracie Grace on the top floor with high-end furniture, but Gracie sadly didn't make a reappearance in this game. Blathers runs the museum all by himself with no upgrades whatsoever, when in previous games, Celeste would open her own spot in the museum where you could look at constellations, but in New Horizons, she was just left to occasionally visit and wander around your island. Where are all the special NPCs that were included in every title except this one? I mean, who needs Shampoo with Harriet when you can just choose your character's hair and look? Who needs the post office with Pelly and Phyllis working while Pete walks around and delivers your mail when you can just send letters in the airport? And at this point in 2020, where was our beloved Brewster? And that's not even scratching the surface of how many other NPCs are in this game still to this day. Dr. Strunk and Gracie, again, just to add to the examples. To be fair, in the 2.0 update, which didn't come out until almost the end of 2021, they did add back some loved characters like Katrina and Reese and Cyrus, but they were only added as an addition to Harv's Island and didn't really offer much like they did in the previous games. We did get Brewster back though, but his cafe is just a part of the museum now rather than the whole cafe. I really did want to have an actual cafe on my island, but this will just suffice for now. Even with this update, there were still characters like Gracie who could have been a potential upgrade in Nook's Cranny like it was in New Leaf where you could get unique items, and I'm sure Dr. Strunk could have been added back in some unique way. Captain did finally make a return in this update, but all he does is take you to practically a Nook Mile island without a villager on it, unlike in New Leaf where there was a whole island to go to that offered so much. I know I'm comparing New Horizons to New Leaf a lot in this video, but you would think with New Horizons basically being the sequel to New Leaf, they wouldn't take out a lot of groundbreaking features. Like, where's all the fruit? Why are there only 6 kinds of fruit trees in New Horizons when there's 12 in New Leaf? Including tropical fruits like mangoes and bananas. We're literally on an island in New Horizons. Where did these fruits go? Also, why does Pocket Camp, the mobile game, have grapes and not this game? And what happened to Perfect Fruit? I have so many questions, and yet none of them get answered. Now, there are a lot of game mechanics added in New Horizons I do particularly enjoy. Of course, there's being able to place furniture outside and actually really being able to design your island freely. Also, crafting is an amazing concept to make certain things like furniture, but you can't even bulk craft anything, so you have to sit there and individually craft things, which takes forever. And speaking of crafting, the tools you make all break at some point, which is understandable, but why do gold tools have to break? This was not a thing in any of the other games, and gold can't even just break like that. Like, what's even the point in trying for hours to get the gold recipes if they're just gonna break in time? The concept of Nook Mile achievements gives the game a little more of a challenge, rewarding you with Nook Mile points that you redeem for items only accessible with these points, but it's not really anything special. And speaking of Nook Miles, you can use them to buy Nook Mile tickets, which can take you to the airport, and Wilbur will fly you to a random little island full of resources. And this is actually the way you get new villagers to move to your island. If you have an open land plot on your island, a random villager will appear on all the Nook Mile islands you go to, and basically, you can choose the villager you want. This is what we call villager hunting, and if you've seen my videos, you know how much I love villager hunting. And speaking of villagers, let's talk about how much they literally nerfed villagers so hard in this game. In all the other games, villagers seem to actually have way more of a personality. I mean, hell, in the first game, they would literally insult you, which I think gives more to work with rather than villagers in New Horizons who all say the same thing over and over and over. Normal villagers talk about cooking and reading. Lazy villagers talk about the food they're eating, and jock villagers only talk about weightlifting. Where is the substance in these villagers? In New Leaf, villagers could ask you to go and perform tasks like catching a bug for them or give something to another villager. I mean, they do that a little bit in New Horizons too, but very rarely. One big game mechanic in this installment that actually did really confuse people was that you could only have one island per switch. Sure, you could add profiles to your switch for other people and have them move their house on your already existing island, but they can't have their own island, which is weird. Considering if you wanted to play New Leaf again, but didn't want to reset your town, you could just buy another copy of the game and it would be brand new. For the Switch, you either restart your island completely or buy a whole new console if you don't want to restart your already existing island. Which I can't really complain about this because I literally bought a whole new Switch to restart New Horizons because I couldn't bring myself to delete the one I already started on. Actually, I can complain. This shit was expensive. All of the Animal Crossing games are known for being life simulators and are supposed to have a realistic aspect to it. A little nitpicking thing I picked up on was that villagers in New Horizons can only leave your island if they ask you to, no matter how long you put down the game. This isn't necessarily a bad thing because at least you know that your beloved villagers aren't going anywhere if you don't play for a while, but I feel like this game doesn't really give you any consequences and challenge the player for not playing. In other versions, if a player didn't play for about a month, the villager would just up and leave if you didn't talk to them that much. Regardless, it is cool in New Horizons that you can A, choose where their house is, and B, decide if they should leave or not. I just personally feel like with a game that wants to focus on a real life connection, shouldn't really let the player have complete control over everything. Because I feel the whole point of these games are to put you in a situation where you can't completely decide exactly what's going to happen all the time, just like in real life. Going back to the consequences I just mentioned, like I said, there aren't many consequences that challenge the player for not playing for a while. The only thing that happens when you don't play for a while is your villagers being like, "Oh my god, where have you been?" and some cockroaches in your house that you have to stomp on. In previous games, weeds would overgrow and flowers would even wilt if not taken care of. And considering this is a life simulation game, where is the actual life-based stuff? Not saying that them taking this feature away was a bad thing, because now the flowers remain beautiful and weeds don't appear everywhere. Speaking of flowers, I hate that they can auto-breed due to rain and just literally grow everywhere. Now, I will say that this is actually a real life thing since flowers actually get watered by the rain, but it's so aggravating. There was one point where one side of my entire island was covered in flowers that had kept breeding with each other, and it took 3 hours to dig them all up because you had to dig them up individually. Now listen, I'm not saying Animal Crossing New Horizons isn't a life simulation game because it clearly is, but based on past games, this one seems to give the utmost control over everything, which kind of takes away the whole idea that this game is based on life itself. With that being said, I guess it all just boils down to the fact that New Horizons, in my opinion, is just kind of boring. With creating your island kind of being the overall goal in the game, depending on how creative you want to make your island, you can basically finish it in a couple months. And after it's done, there's just not much left to do. No exotic island you can visit with minigames, no interesting conversations with your villagers, and no shops to really upgrade. When this game came out, I was ecstatic to play every day because there was so much to do in the beginning, but once you're past that part, there's not much left at all, which is what a lot of players consider burnout, which is pretty disappointing considering I played the other Animal Crossing games for hours on end and even came back to them from time to time and was excited to see what New Horizons offered with its stunning new graphics and gameplay. Needless to say, if New Horizons is your first introduction to this amazing franchise, then understandably, it's a good game. I'm not saying I don't like New Horizons. I mean, I still make videos in the game to this day, which you should watch, by the way. Being able to completely customize your island to your liking is really cool, and I've enjoyed being able to design my island into whatever it is I want. I love the way the game looks, with its fantastic HD graphics and playstyle. I still do enjoy talking to my adorable villagers, regardless if it's them telling me the same thing they said the day before. I just think for me, it's a lack of content overall that makes this game a little dull, and it's sad. All in all, I do like New Horizons. I wouldn't have played it for over 1,000 hours if I didn't. I just personally believe that it was a step down from its previous titles, which ultimately I think led to the unfortunate downfall of Animal Crossing. Who knows what's in store for the next game, and hopefully I won't have to make a video talking down on a game I've enjoyed most of my life with literally over 3,000 words. I just wrote a whole essay. Let's go! I do hope you guys enjoy this video, and let me know your thoughts and opinions on New Horizons. What kind of content do you think should be in this game that's not already in it? And what kind of game mechanics bother you? Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.